So I do have a video here that'll show us how to create a policy in Roomkey using the policy module. So you'll start from system configuration and you'll select policy. Here in the policy module, I'll list any policies that are currently active in your database, and you can click add on the right-hand side to create a new policy. In this case, I'm going to create a policy for my penthouse room types, and I'm going to call this penthouse policy. I'm going to require a credit card to guarantee the reservation, as well as a deposit. When you're setting up a deposit, you can choose how Roomkey calculates the deposit amount, whether it's a percentage of the stay, a fixed amount, or first night's room and tax charges. In this case, I'm going to set it up as 50% of the guest stay is required as a deposit. Next, you can select the cancellation penalty, and often you will find that the cancellation penalty is set up in the exact same way as the deposit. So percentage of the stay and 50%. And then the next thing that you need to do with the cancellation policy is to set up when the number of hours before arrival that policy takes effect. So it'll always be a calculation of hours there. If you are using this policy for any online bookings, you can select modification as well. And if you are setting up the modification policy, I recommend it be the same as a cancellation. Now, lastly, you do need to enter in policy text. This is the text that will appear on the guest confirmation letter, and you can click OK. Now, I've set up a policy here for a penthouse room types. I just wanted to show you another type of policy. This is an advanced purchase policy. And the difference here is that the number of hours before arrival for the cancellation, this is actually a negative. When this cancellation policy is set as a negative, it means that it is always enabled. So that property will always charge a full cancellation penalty for any cancellations. So quite a bit of flexibility there. I do have another video here that's going to show us how you can manually attach the policy. In this case, this example, it's going to be using that penthouse policy, and I'm going to attach it to my penthouse room types. Now, this is only required if you are using a separate policy or if you have a second or third policy. If you only have one policy in your database, it is the default, and you do not need to manually attach it to anything like a room type or client type. Because if it is set as the default policy, it will apply to all reservations. But this one, I'm just going to show you how you could manually attach a different policy other than the default. And this one will be attached to a room type. So I'm going to go to System Configuration and select Property. And I'm going to go to the Room Inventory tab, and I'm going to use the Penthouse room types. Here, when I select the Policy tab, you can now insert a policy, and you will select the Penthouse policy in this example. And the date 2, I've removed the date 2 because I do not want to have an end date for this policy. So it's going to go through and always be applicable, and I'll apply that to the next penthouse room type as well in the same manner without a date 2. Now, when you apply a policy to a room type, I'm just going to show you how that will now affect a new reservation. When I click New Res and go to book one of the penthouse rooms, in this case, the penthouse villa, and I go to enter the guest info, what I'll see here is automatically calculating a deposit that is required, which is 50% of the total. You'll also notice that I have a guarantee in the top right-hand corner, indicating I need a credit card to guarantee. If I forget the payment type or the credit card, Roomkey will give me this warning, just reminding me that payment is required in order to guarantee the reservation. So when I guarantee the reservation with a deposit, you'll see that Roomkey automatically processes that deposit and posts that as a reservation deposit on the guest folio. So just a little bit of an overview there of those policy settings and how you can manage that information or manually attach an alternate policy in that case. There is a report in Roomkey where we track any policy violations if someone does not adhere to a cancellation or booking policy in Roomkey. If you go to the reports menu in the audit section, there is a section of reports called policy exceptions. It appears towards the bottom here, and you can view two separate reports if you wanted to just see any exceptions to your deposit policy, or if you want to see anyone who has exempted from the cancellation policy. I think this one has an example today. This is an example of a cancellation exemption where the reservation was canceled and an amount was due, which we can see here was $405, but the actual amount that was taken for this cancellation was $0. So this is a policy exemption. We know that this guest was not charged per policy requirements.